What's up, everyone? We are diving back into the multiverse today for another epic What If Smart Naruto Built Large Harem with Tenten, Tayuya, Fuka, Konan, Mei, Samui, Part 2. If you enjoy this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more fanfics like this. Now, let's dive right into the fanfic. The battle. Naruto took a moment to survey the battlefield. Sasuke was just about exhausted, while Haku seemed fine. Tazuna and Sakura were untouched, while Kakashi appeared worse for wear and appeared quite worn out, with a slash on his chest which showed blood had been drawn. Sizing up his options, he quickly made a shadow clone and sent it to help Kakashi, while he went to help Sasuke. Naruto had walked into the dome and saw the ice mirrors he noticed from the outside looked undamaged, before all appeared to show Haku. For some reason Naruto just knew only one was the real one, but had no idea how to work it out at the moment. Sasuke, tell me what you know about this jutsu. Naruto requested seriously. He uses mirrors to transport himself at super speeds and it appears as though he is all around, when he is really in one place. Sasuke summed up. Have you tried any fire jutsu? Inquired Naruto. Yeah, but they don't work, or I wouldn't be in this mess, idiot. Sasuke stated. Fine, well now it's my time to try my own jutsu, fire style, Grand Fireball Jutsu. Naruto intoned, as a great fireball emerged and struck a mirror. Once the flames died down, it was clear nothing had happened. Told you, said Sasuke arrogantly. Fine, I'll go with Plan B, Shadow Clone Jutsu, shouted Naruto, with 16 clones appearing in total, enough so there would be a clone for each mirror in the structure. Sasuke, I noticed for a while that you were able to keep up with his movements, have you managed to activate your Sharingan? Naruto asked. No, but I'm close. Sasuke admitted reluctantly. Very well, watch the battle and try to anticipate his movements, once you achieve it, we will attack him together, until then, charge. Yelled Naruto, commanding all his clones to attack a mirror. Sasuke watched intently and could see Haku jumping from mirror to mirror. He saw all the clones destroyed, but then his eyes widened when he saw Haku throw 5 needles, all at Naruto's vital organs. He then charged and pushed Naruto out of the way, only to take the needles himself. Sharingan activated at last. Naruto was surprised to say the least, as he didn't exactly think of Sasuke as a friend and thought the feeling was mutual. Why Sasuke? Naruto asked, clearly surprised. I don't know, I just saw it and moved. Naruto, I hated you, you were always a nuisance. He growled. Arg, I didn't ask for you to save me, so why did you do this? Cried Naruto. My body just acted on its own, said Sasuke weakly, before collapsing onto Naruto. Sasuke was bleeding heavily from the mouth. Naruto, I have one request, you two were left alone in this world, so you know what it means to suffer as I have, so I ask you, as a fellow shinobi, teammate, and quite possibly the only one who understands me, please kill my brother for me, for it is he who destroyed my clan and made me how I today, cold and uncaring. Begged Sasuke. Sasuke, I do understand how you feel, so I will honor your request. Said Naruto, with a small smile. Thank you, Naruto, said Sasuke, before closing his eyes. Naruto sat shocked, he couldn't believe that Sasuke was dead. Red started to bleed into blue and eventually his eyes turned red. He kept looking at Sasuke's lifeless body and his rage began to envelop him, seeing the only person who understood his pain laying there utterly motionless. His first friend, dead. Naruto's canines elongated and the first tail emerged. He growled, feeling the malice of the Kyuubi's chakra flowing through him, before looking up at Haku. You will pay, he shouted in rage. Line break. With Kakashi. Line break. Kakashi had been fighting with Naruto's clone and was attempting to trap Zabuza close to the edge of the bridge, however he overstepped and Zabuza capitalized, slashing him with his blade, drawing blood once again. Well Kakashi, it seems you made a mistake, said Zabuza arrogantly. It seems you have also, said Naruto's shadow clone, pressing his sword on Zabuza's neck. Zabuza began to sweat and was worried that this was it, but then suddenly the clone cried in pain, before popping out of existence. Both Kakashi and Zabuza were confused and simultaneously turned and saw the red haze at the ice mirror dome. Oh no, I think Naruto lost control, I have to end this now. Kakashi drew a scroll and swiped some of the blood from his jacket onto the scroll. He twirled it around and then placed it on top of his knuckles, while making hand signs, then slammed it on the ground and said, Ninja Art Summoning, Earth Style, Fang Pursuit Jutsu. Little squiggles rushed out and rushed to where Zabuza was. When the markings reached him, ninja hounds burst from the ground and bit on to Zabuza along his neck and all his limbs. Got you, said Kakashi. Line break. With Naruto. Line break. The rage was overwhelming Naruto, and he could only cry out in pain, trying to prevent the second tail from coming out. After a fair bit of struggling, he succeeded in stopping it and managed to hold his mind together for the moment. Haku, last chance. I will destroy you unless you abandon Zabuza and join us, threatened Naruto, barely succeeding at holding back his rage. To say Haku was stunned was an understatement. He thought he was finished, yet here he was being offered a second chance. I'm afraid I can't accept, Naruto. As long as Zabuza lives, I must serve him, Haku said rather emotionlessly. Naruto nodded and crouched down, before he unleashed the tailed fox stream while spinning in a circle, in a similar manner to what he did in the forest, destroying all mirrors and sending Haku flying out with his clothing alight. Naruto walked over and before he punched Haku in the gut, knocking him unconscious, he said, You won't serve anyone very soon. Line break. With Kakashi. Line break. Kakashi made hand signs and formed his very own original jutsu, Lightning Blade. He called, Zabuza, I won't let you kill Tazuna. He is a brave man and is helping this village recover, so I won't let you destroy this bridge and this village's dreams, said Kakashi, while he gripped his hand, even as he literally held lightning in his hand. Why should I care? I have my own dreams, Zabuza retorted. But in order to have a dream you need a future, and your future is all used up. This is the end, Zabuza, Kakashi said and charged in a straight line towards the former mist ninja. He thrust his hand holding his jutsu into Zabuza, right through his heart, causing him to die almost instantly. Goodbye, Zabuza Momochi, said Kakashi solemnly. Naruto approached the group when Sakura spoke, Hey Naruto, where's Sasuke? Naruto met her gaze, and she instantly thought the worst due to seeing his expression. She ran off to where Sasuke was and begun to cry over his body, believing him to be dead, but within a few minutes, he rose from the ground. Sakura, it's hard to breathe with you leaning on me like that, he called out in a rather raspy tone. She hugged him a little tighter, before letting him up. Where is Naruto? He asked. Line break. Back with Naruto and Kakashi. Line break. A short plump man was clapping and spoke, so I finally see Zabuza dead. Both Naruto and Kakashi looked at him. Who are you? Both asked. Me. I'm Gato, and these fine men next to me are my personal warriors, said Gato, indicating the 100 or so men standing around him. Naruto, who was in his first tailed form again and entering his second, quickly spoke to Kakashi in an animalistic growl, He is mine. Kakashi understood trying to stop him was now near impossible since he was almost out of chakra, so he stiffly nodded. Naruto grinned at this and begun to walk forward. Gato retreated behind his men and said, Get him. The men then charged while Naruto popped his neck, before he went down on all fours. In a red flash he shot his hand right through the heart of one of them, letting the blood flow freely. He then ducked down to avoid a halberd strike, which decapitated the person he had just killed. Naruto then launched his tail and pierced the neck of the person who attacked him, who coughed up large wads of blood before dying. Naruto then charged and slammed the heads of two bandits together, crushing them like watermelons, sending blood and brain matter splattering along the floor of the bridge. He then realized this wasn't going to satisfy him, so he stood up and drew his sword, before he quickly beheaded the other 96 men in a blur of blood and red chakra, before flicking his blade elegantly, removing the blood on it, before sheathing his blade and walking calmly towards Gato. Wait. Don't kill me, I'll give you anything you want, Gato pleaded. There is only one thing that you can give me to save you, said Naruto in his animalistic voice. What is it? I'll give you whatever it is, Gato said desperately. Bring back the man you killed in this land who taught the people of this land courage, said Naruto, before he gave Gato an evil smirk. Gato begun to sweat and realized he couldn't do that, so he said, but he is, arg. Gato yelled in pain, as Naruto just ripped his left arm out of its socket. Wrong answer, growled Naruto. He watched the blood fall out of the left arm in morbid fascination, and then cut both of Gato's legs at the knee with his sword. Then he stood on his last remaining limb and growled while pulling his arm back, fingers all together in the shape of a knife and claws extended. This is for all the hurt you have caused, said Naruto, before plunging his hand right through the short man's lung, causing him to cry out in pain and cough out blood, indicated by the sound of a wet splatter hitting the cold stone below. The torture was soon to end though, as Naruto then brought his other hand up in the shape of a fist, and this is for Inari. He almost whispered, before smashing his fist into Gato's skull, going right through his brain, killing him instantly. Naruto withdrew his hands and walked back to Kakashi, who gave him a look of understanding laced with worry, and a hint of fear. Don't worry, Kakashi, it's me not Kyuubi, sighed Naruto tiredly, releasing his demonic chakra and turning around to see Inari, with all the villagers behind him. Naruto, I know you said a hero shows up at the last minute, but you didn't really leave us with much, said Inari, half surprised and half joking, suppressing the small amount of fear at the sight of pure carnage in front of him. Naruto walked over to Zabuza and after Kyuubi told him how, sealed Zabuza's sword into a scroll. Haku chose this time to wake up and looked around and saw Zabuza dead. He picked up a needle and was about to pierce his heart, when Naruto stopped his hand. Haku, you are free now, so I will ask you this again. Will you abandon Zabuza and join us, or will you simply kill yourself, eliminating your purpose? Asked Naruto compassionately. Haku thought about it before saying, I have no purpose anymore. And he turned his head away in sadness. I have one for you. For you to be my friend and live your life the way you want it, said Naruto with a smile. Naruto? Asked Haku in surprise, but after looking at the whiskered Uzumaki's face which only showed a smiling visage full of compassion, Haku paused in hesitation. I accept your offer, said Haku after some deliberation, the beginnings of a smile appearing on his face. Line break. Next week. Line break. The bridge was finished and Team 7 and Haku were just about to head back to the Leaf Village. Before they left, Inari spoke, guys come back real soon, okay? Don't worry Inari, we will see each other again someday soon, said Naruto smiling. Tsunami walked up to Naruto and kissed him on his right cheek, which caused Naruto to blush slightly. Thanks Naruto, said Tsunami softly, leaving almost everyone floored. Naruto scratched his cheek bashfully, before turning away to hide his growing blush. Haha, she just made my day, I am never going to let this go Naruto, said Kyuubi happily. As the ninja were leaving, the villagers begun to ask about the name of the bridge, before Tazuna spoke, smiling at Naruto's form moving away in the distance. We will call it the Great Naruto Bridge. Tsunami chuckled. That's a good name and hopefully it will stand as a beacon of strength for years to come, just like Naruto was for this village in the bridge, said Tsunami, with a soft smile. Line break. Just as they were nearing the village hidden in the leaves, Kakashi finally snapped out of his shock from Naruto getting kissed and spoke up. Naruto, if you really want your friend here to be a part of the village you are going to have to take him to see the Hokage, advised Kakashi. Naruto nodded and as soon as they were in the village, he took Haku straight to the Hokage tower. Naruto walked into the tower with Haku following behind. He arrived at the Hokage's door then knocked and went in. The third was sitting at his desk and other than looking a bit worn out, seemed quite happy to see Naruto. Ah, Naruto, how is everything? Asked Hiruzen, beaming at Naruto. Good, but I'm here on business old man, said Naruto seriously, but also smiling at the warm greeting. Who is this? Asked Hiruzen, gesturing towards Haku. This is Haku, we met on our last mission in the Land of Waves and long story short, he is here to become a Leaf Shinobi, said Naruto. Yes, Naruto here saved my life and I wish to repay the favor. I would also like to be on his team, said Haku politely. The Hokage thought about it and decided to agree after some thought. Very well, I will agree to these terms and allow Haku to become a Leaf Shinobi, but he must face a test to see if he has the skills to be one, said the Hokage seriously. Naruto nodded, while Haku respectfully bowed before they both left. Hopefully that boy will be able to teach Naruto how to show respect. Then again, I don't think that will ever happen. Naruto is nothing if not stubborn, thought the Hokage, mentally chuckling, before audibly sighing and returning to his paperwork. I really hate paperwork, thought Hiruzen, before resuming his mind-numbing task. Shukaku and the Chunin exams. Haku adjusted to life in the village quickly. He passed his test of becoming a Leaf Genin by fighting a low-level Chunin and winning, and from that point onwards did missions with Team 7. They did about 10D rank missions over the next few days, while the Chunin exams were fast approaching. Kakashi got his team together and showed up on time for once, probably to avoid pissing off Naruto, who Kakashi was wary of actually following through on some of his previous threats, given he now technically had the power to back them up. The group were standing on a small bridge when Kakashi arrived. Guys, I'm really proud of all of you, said Kakashi, smiling, as he appeared on the rail of the bridge. You have all come a long way, so I have recommended all of you for the Chunin exams. If you want to participate, go tomorrow to room 301 in the academy and submit these applications, said Kakashi, throwing one to all four of them. Bye, said Kakashi, before disappearing with body flicker. Sasuke walked off and Sakura followed, trying to get a date, as she obviously didn't get the hint that Sasuke wasn't interested. Haku also walked off after a while and Naruto finally decided to get some ramen. As Naruto was heading to Ichiraku's, he heard Konohamaru yelling, "Let me go." Naruto went to where he heard the commotion and saw two ninja. The first was a blonde girl with her hair in 4 pigtails, with a battle fan strapped to her back. She wore a single light purple-colored, off-the-shoulders garment that extended halfway down her thighs, with a scarlet sash tied around her waist. In addition to incorporating fishnet worn over her shoulders and legs, specifically on her right calf and her left thigh, she also wore a headband around her neck, which depicted an hourglass. Next to and in front of her slightly was a boy who wore a black, baggy, full-body suit, with a red and yellow circle on the front. He also wore a black hood, with cat-like ears, and his forehead protector, which also depicted an hourglass, was tied snugly on his forehead. The boy in question also happened to have a hand on Konohamaru and was squeezing him painfully by his scarf, using it to strangle the boy. "Kankuro, put him down, you're going to get us in trouble," said the girl. "Relax, Tamari, we've got a bit of time until he gets here, we might as well have some fun," replied the boy Naruto now knew to be named Kankuro. "I suggest you listen to the pretty girl, as it is clear that she has a brain, while you clearly do not," said Naruto, his tone slightly mocking, but his eyes were very serious. Tamari was surprised that this kid had just insulted her brother and blushed at the small compliment, while Kankuro snarled at being called brainless. "You know what, kid, you've offended me, so I'm going to teach this boy your lesson, respect your betters," said Kankuro, who then pulled his fist back, preparing to slug Konohamaru in the face. Naruto appeared in an instant, with his sword pressed against Kankuro's neck. "Like I said, I suggest you listen to me, and you are not my better," said Naruto, with disdain clear in his voice. Kankuro let Konohamaru down and let him move away and leave the area, while Naruto backed off. He then pulled off what looked to be a mummy of his back. "What are you doing, Kankuro? Are you going to use the crow for this?" asked Tamari, slightly worried. "Kankuro, you are an embarrassment to our village," said a voice from nowhere, which sounded bored. The owner of the voice appeared in a swirl of sand in front of his comrades. "Oh, hey Gaara," said Kankuro nervously. The new arrival turned and faced Naruto. He wore a black full-body suit with t-shirt-like sleeves, 3/4 length legs, and an open neck. With this, he wore a white cloth over his right shoulder and the left side of his hips, and a wide leather band system over the left shoulder and right side of his hips. With this leather band, he carried what appeared to be a gourd. His forehead protector was wrapped around the band. His eyes appeared to be a bluish-green but had dark black circles around them. "So this is the vessel of the one-tailed Shukaku," said Kyuubi. "Do you know this kid?" thought Naruto. "No, but I know the demon inside him, he is just like you," replied Kyuubi. "He smells like a raccoon," thought Naruto. That is most likely due to the fact that Shukaku is the one-tailed raccoon demon. Said Kyuubi, almost condescendingly. Keep pushing me, Kyuubi. Warned Naruto, at the subtle jab at his intelligence. I apologize for my brother. Said Gaara bowing deeply. I accept your apology, but I would like to ask you something. Said Naruto. Why has the raccoon come to the leaf? He asked. Temari and Kankuro's eyes widened, but Gaara's almost popped out of his head, before he clutched his head in pain. It appears that the seal on that vessel hasn't been done properly and Shukaku is tormenting his host. Tell the vessel that Shukaku better lay off tormenting his vessel, or I'll come out. Said Kyuubi. Gaara, tell your tenant to listen and that if he doesn't stop tormenting you, the fox will come out to play. Said Naruto grinning. Gaara immediately stopped screaming and raised his head panting slightly. Thank you for that, said Gaara, bowing once again before raising his head. However, even though you have helped me, if we meet in battle, I will kill you. Said Gaara, releasing his bloodlust and killer intent to try and intimidate Naruto. Naruto smiled back and released twice as much while saying, looking forward to it. As the siblings were leaving, Naruto asked, what are your names? The girl quickly replied and said, I'm Temari, that's Kankuro, and he is Gaara. She said, gesturing to each in turn. Naruto nodded and said, I'm Naruto Uzumaki and Gaara, I empathize with your pain, and I really do wish to help you, but you better not hurt any of my friends. If you do, I will show you very little mercy. We shall see, said Gaara, before they all walked off, with Naruto forgetting about ramen and heading home. It seems the Chunin exams will be interesting, huh Kyuubi? Thought Naruto. So it seems, but why did you say you wanted to help? Inquired Kyuubi. Did you see it? His eyes. In his eyes I saw he has suffered a great deal and has most likely been shunned or worse, which has made him how he is today. That could have easily happened to me if it wasn't for Iruka-sensei and the others. If I help him, even though I am just one person, that may be enough to save him before he descends into madness and bloodlust from which he can't be saved. Thought Naruto. You really are something else, Kit. Said Kyuubi almost admiringly. Well then cut me a break on the insults. Retorted Naruto internally, causing the fox to laugh. With that incident sorted, Naruto headed home and got ready for the Chunin exams, which were only around the corner. Line break. The next day. Line break. Naruto met up with Haku, Sasuke, and Sakura along his walk to the academy, so they all went together. When they arrived on the second floor, they saw a boy in green spandex being beaten up by two guards. Naruto recognized the boy as Lee and instantly knew he was faking being weak. While he wondered about this, he saw Tenten. She was in her usual attire, a pink sleeveless blouse, and dark green pants, with her hair up in two buns, with her forehead protector just under her fringe on her forehead. She was crouching down next to Lee, talking to the guards. As she walked over to them, one guard was about to hit her. Naruto appeared in an instant and blocked the punch aimed at her. You know, it's not nice to hit a lady, said Naruto. Most of those around were surprised at how fast Naruto moved, causing murmurs to break out among the onlookers. Sasuke walked up with Sakura close behind and said, while you're at it, drop the genjutsu, it's pathetic. Most were wondering what Sasuke was talking about, until the guard spoke up, so you saw through the genjutsu huh? The guard charged Sasuke, while Sasuke begun to swing a kick. In an instant, Lee appeared between both and stopped them with his hands. That's some chakra he's got. Thought Sasuke. What are you doing? Aren't you the one who said we should hide our true strength? Said a boy who had piercing white eyes, with a slight lavender tint to them, and very fair skin, while walking up to Lee. The boy had noticeably long, black hair, which reached the middle of his back and was tied back a few inches above the end, while two straps were attached to a smaller headband sitting snugly underneath his ninja forehead protector, framing the sides of his face. He wore a khaki shirt, dark brown shorts, and blue shinobi sandals. He also had bandages wrapped around his right arm, chest, and right leg. Sorry, but Lee broke off and looked at Sakura, before he blushed. Haku decided to make his presence known and asked Naruto, do you know these three? Oh well, I know Lee and Tenten, but I don't know their other teammate. said Naruto sheepishly. Although if I remember, I did hear about someone called Neji Hyuga. I guess that could be him. Naruto thought aloud. Yes, that is correct. My name is Neji Hyuga and these two and my teammates. Who are you? Asked Neji. Well, my name is Naruto Uzumaki, this is Haku, and those two are Sasuke and Sakura. After the formalities the genin all headed to room 301, at some point however, Sasuke, Lee, and Sakura managed to get away from Neji, Naruto, Haku, and Tenten. While they were walking, Naruto gave Tenten the scroll containing Zabuza's blade. Haku was intrigued, while Neji activated his Byakugan, causing the veins and arteries around his eyes to protrude. Upon seeing what was inside the scroll, Neji's eyes widened. What's this? Asked Tenten, looking at the scroll curiously. That's a thank you for helping me get the things I needed to be a strong ninja, as well as being my friend. Trust me, I know you will like it, said Naruto with a smile. As the group entered room 301, they quickly split up. A couple minutes later, Lee showed up with a mark on his face before joining his team. About 10 minutes after that, Sasuke showed up, appearing quite flustered, with Sakura close behind. Naruto and Haku walked up to them quickly, at which point all the other rookie genin approached them. So once again the rookies are together again, Akamaru, said Kiba. Ino hugged Sasuke from behind causing Sakura to begin yelling at her, with this back and forth continuing for a while. So troublesome, said the familiar voice of Shikamaru as he approached the group, with Choji close behind munching on some chips. Well, Shikamaru, I didn't expect to see you here. Isn't this too much work for you? Asked Naruto, his tone sounding joking, but also mixed with genuine confusion. Yeah, but Asuma made us, so here we are, replied Shikamaru, sounding very bored. You guys might want to keep it down, you're attracting a lot of attention, said a boy with black eyes partially obscured with a pair of circular glasses. His gray hair was kept in a ponytail, and he wore a dark purple shirt with a white undershirt, with a white sash around his waist worn at an angle, dark purple pants, blue sandals, and a shuriken holster on his right leg. Who are you? Asked Sasuke. Me. I'm Kabuto Yakushi. You must be the rookie genin, he stated. Yeah, we are, replied Sasuke coolly. Well, maybe I can help you out then, said Kabuto, who then proceeded to talk about who came to the exams and what generally happened, as well as his 7-in-a-row streak of failure and finally and most importantly, his ninja info cards. Show me what you have on Gaara of the Desert, Rock Lee, and Naruto Uzumaki, said Sasuke. Naruto looked at him strangely but didn't say anything. Okay, first up, Gaara of the Desert. His teammates are Temari and Kankuro of the Desert, who are also his siblings, and it says here he has completed 8 C ranks and AB rank without getting a single scratch. In fact, he has never been injured, said Kabuto calmly. The genin were stunned until Kabuto moved on. Rock Lee, teammates Neji Hyuga and Tenten, Sensei Might Guy. His taijutsu has increased dramatically over the past 12 months, but the rest of his skills are virtually non-existent. He has completed 20 D ranks and 11 C ranks. Lastly, Naruto Uzumaki says here you've done 20 D ranks and an A rank, impressive. You have cage level chakra capacity and mid chunin to low junin skill level in ninjutsu. Your genjutsu skills are basic at best, while your taijutsu and kenjutsu are both mid chunin level. Additionally, you can do the shadow clone jutsu and the flying thunder god technique, said Kabuto. As Kabuto finished, the entire room was quiet for varying reasons. The rookies' silence was due to their fear and shock about Naruto's skill level, while almost all the others were extremely curious how Naruto knew the fourth's most famous technique. Well, it seems you have the attention of all the villages, even the Little Sound village seems interested, said Kabuto. Well, it doesn't matter. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, and I will beat every single one of you, proclaimed Naruto. Hey, that guy called us little, said one of the Sound genin. He had spiky, dark hair and dark eyes. He wore a beige shirt with 2 black stripes and 3 prints which said death down the front. His forehead protector had a face guard. As with his teammates, he wore a snake-patterned scarf around his neck. Well, let's teach him a lesson, said the other Sound genin. He had bandages covering most of his face, leaving only his left eye uncovered. He also wore a large poncho with long sleeves, a snake-patterned scarf around his neck, and a straw raincoat protruding from the back of his scarf. His back was hunched, which made him look smaller than he actually was. The sound team dashed around the room, before the one who spoke first threw a kunai at Kabuto, who jumped back to avoid it. An instant after that though, the genin who looked like a mummy revealed a gauntlet with holes in it and swung his fist, barely missing Kabuto's torso. Kabuto stood up victoriously, before his glasses broke. "Oh, I see, it was that kind of an attack," he said, taking off his glasses calmly, before he sensed something else was wrong and clutched his stomach in pain, coughing up blood. "Kabuto, are you alright?" asked Naruto and Sakura. "Put this in your information cards. The genin of the sound will all be chunin when this exam is over," said the sound ninja who threw the kunai. Suddenly a large cloud of smoke appeared and about 16 leaf ninja were revealed as the smoke faded away. The big one in the middle had a sadistic grin and said, "I am Ibiki Morino, the first proctor of these chunin exams and as of now, your worst nightmare. All right now, first things first, there is to be no unauthorized fighting in this exam, that includes you, genin of the sound," announced Ibiki. Ibiki had a large, imposing figure, which was complemented with a face covered with old wounds and scars. Ibiki's head was covered with the cloth of his forehead protector, and he had a long dark blue cloak on. "Sorry, it's our first time," said the mummy-looking genin. Ibiki glared at the genin but continued, "Secondly, this exam starts now. You will each take a piece of paper from one of the chunin behind me and the number you receive is where you will sit." The genin walked forward in single file, took a number from one of the chunin, and then found their seats in the modified classroom. When everyone was seated, Ibiki spoke, "Now the first part of the chunin exams is a written test." Murmurs broke out, but they were all silenced by Ibiki's glare. "However, before we begin, there are some rules," started Ibiki, who was writing on a chalkboard while speaking at the same time. "Rule 1. The test works on a point deduction system. Unlike regular tests, you all start off with a perfect score of 10 points. If you answer 3 questions wrong, your score is 7. Rule 2. Every time a person is caught cheating, they will lose 2 points. Get caught cheating 5 times and you fail. That is what the sentinels you see to your sides are for, they will monitor you. Anyone caught cheating doesn't deserve to be here. Finally, you will be scored together with your team and if one person on your team gets a 0, you all fail. The 10th question will be given out 45 minutes from now." Finished Ibiki. Sakura paled and started worrying about Naruto getting a 0, as she still didn't think he was intelligent, but rather, saw him as an idiot, albeit one with brute force on his side. "Now begin," announced Ibiki. Everyone started to read the questions and many quickly realized that they didn't know the answers for many, if not all of the questions, and came to the conclusion that they had to cheat. There were many different methods of cheating, such as using dujutsu, using pets to find answers, a system of mirrors, and even certain other jutsu, like an eye of sand. Naruto took one look at the test and thought, "I'm screwed. As much as I enjoy watching you suffer, you could easily just summon a small fox to scout for answers," said Kyuubi amused. "All right, here it goes," thought Naruto. Summoning jutsu. Naruto whispered. A little dark red fox with one tail appeared. It bowed before running off to find answers. "Now all I have to do is sit back and wait," thought Naruto. As Naruto was about to lean back, a kunai whizzed past his face and into the test of the person behind him. "What was that all about?" asked the genin. 5 strikes and you're out, you just failed the test," said the chunin who threw the kunai. "What, it can't be," cried the genin. "You and your teammates will leave the room immediately. Candidate 23, fail. Number 27 and 43, fail," said Ibiki. Naruto's fox came back yipping quietly, which prompted Naruto to quickly write down the answers he heard, inwardly surprised that he could understand foxes, but chalked it up to having Kyuubi, and possibly due to being the summoner of the foxes, before the fox disappeared in a puff of smoke. The trend of failure continued, and many teams failed, about 15 in total, and now the time of the 10th question was approaching. Kankuro chose that time to walk in, just as Ibiki was getting ready to ask the 10th question. "Ah, You've returned. I hope your trip to the bathroom was enlightening, said Ibiki with a small grin. Kankuro appeared nervous, but walked back to his seat nonetheless, only the slightest pause in his gait when he dropped a tiny rolled-up scroll near Tamari. Now listen carefully and try not to let the extra rules frighten you, said Ibiki, getting numerous grumbles of discontent which were quickly quelled by a quick glare. Very well. Rule number 1. Each of you is free to not take the question, it's your decision. Begun Ibiki. Whoa, so what's the catch? Say we don't want to take the question, asked Tamari. If you refuse to take the 10th question, regardless of your answers to the other 9, you get a 0, meaning you fail, along with your teammates, replied Ibiki. Murmurs went around of people saying that they would definitely take the question before Ibiki continued. You didn't let me finish. If you choose to take the question and answer it wrong, you and your teammates will be barred from taking the Chunin exams forever, said Ibiki, giving the group a small grin. Hey, that's bull. There are lots of people who have taken this exam before, complained Kiba angrily. Ibiki chuckled before responding to Kiba's grumbling. I guess you're just unlucky. I wasn't making the rules before, but I am now. Of course, if you don't want to take it, you don't have to. If you're not feeling confident, then by all means, skip it, and you can come back and try again next time, said Ibiki, who then laughed. Now then, the 10th question, those who don't want to take it, raise your hand. Your number will be recorded and then you're free to go, finished Ibiki. After a while the person next to Naruto cracked. I'm out, he said and apologized to his teammates who offered a few grumbles of discontent before the 3 were led out of the room. As soon as this happened, many more quit shortly after. Sakura watched Naruto and thought he wouldn't put his hand up because he was stubborn. I can't let you do this to yourself, Naruto, thought Sakura, while she begun to raise her hand. Naruto saw this happening and realized Sakura didn't know he had the answers, so he did something drastic, he raised his hand first. Many people were shocked at this turn of events, but then Naruto slammed his hand down and stood up. Don't underestimate me, I don't quit and I don't run. You can act tough all you want, it doesn't matter to me. I don't care if I'm stuck as a genin for the rest of my life, I'll still be Hokage, finished Naruto, before sitting down. There, that stopped her, thought Naruto in relief. This decision is one that could change your life. If for any reason you would rather quit, now is your last chance, said Ibiki. No way, I never go back on my word, that's my way of the ninja, replied Naruto confidently. Interesting, that little outburst has given the others some backbone. He has persuaded them into staying. 78 left, more than I expected, but I don't see anyone wavering, I think that's it, thought Ibiki, while looking around the room carefully. The Chunin nodded to him, and he nodded back. Well then, I admire your determination if nothing else. For those of you remaining, there is only one thing left to do and that's for me to tell you, you all pass the first exam, said Ibiki. What do you mean we pass, where is the 10th question? Asked Sakura. There wasn't one, or at least not a written one, your decision to stay here was the answer to the 10th question, said Ibiki smiling widely. So does that mean those other 9 questions you gave us were just a waste of time? Is that what you're saying? Asked Tamari. No, not at all, quite the opposite. They had a very important underlying purpose. The first 9 questions were to test your ability to surreptitiously gather strategic intelligence under the most adverse circumstances, informed Ibiki. Oh, well, that clears up everything, said Tamari, sounding confused. Let me explain. My objective was to test how well you function as a part of a team, which is why you were scored as a team, so you would know that everything you would do, or fail to do, would affect your teammates. I wanted to see how you would cope with the pressure. The first 9 questions on the test were difficult, or as you may have realized, too difficult for any genin to be able to solve. I imagined many of you quickly realized you had to cheat to have any chance of passing. In fact, the test was designed to encourage cheating, it almost demanded it. Of course, it would have done you little good if you had no one to cheat from, which is why I had 2 Chunin disguised to sit in with you. Those who were caught at it failed. Better not to cheat than to cheat clumsily. Information, it can be the most valuable weapon in battle. How well you gather it can be the difference between failure and success. There will be times when you will have to risk your life to get it, said Ibiki, taking off his forehead protector and revealing a horribly mangled skull. Man, what a mess. Scars and puncture wounds, what he must have endured, whispered Sasuke. Of course, you must always consider the source of your information. Intelligence gathered from the enemy is not necessarily accurate, always bear this in mind. Disinformation can be worse than no information at all. It can lead to the death of comrades, or the loss of a village. That's why I put you in the position that you would have to gather accurate intelligence, cheat in order to survive, and that's why those who weren't good enough at it were weeded out, leaving the rest of you. Finished Ibiki. Okay, but I'm still not getting what the whole 10th question thing is all about, said Tamari. You're not. The 10th question was the whole point of the exam, surely you see that? Asked Ibiki. Sure, but explain it anyway, said Sakura. As I said before, the purpose was to test you as part of a squad, not just individuals. The final question gave you two options, both difficult: play it safe knowing that it would mean you fail, or take a risk and possibly be stuck as a genin forever. It was a no-win situation, the type Chunin have to deal with every day. Let me give you a hypothetical. You need to retrieve a sacred document. You have no idea how many enemy ninja there are guarding it, furthermore, you have reason to believe they expect you. Can you pass up the mission to live another day? No, of course not. Many missions Chunin take appear almost suicidal if you think about them, but you do not think about them, you think only of accomplishing the mission through courage and discipline. These are the qualities required of a Chunin squad leader. Those who choose the safer of two paths, those whose determination would falter in the face of adversity, those who would put their comrades' lives in jeopardy worrying about their own lives, those who would save their necks at the price of sacred honor, will never be able to call themselves Chunin, at least while I'm around. As for the rest of you, you have successfully answered the 10 questions I put to you. You have earned the right to continue on with the next step. You have passed through the first gate, and I hereby declare this part of the Chunin selection exams completed. There is nothing left to do but to wish you all good luck. Finished Ibiki. Just as he finished speaking, something flew through the window. Two kunai attached to a cloth were thrown into the roof and a person emerged. The person had light brown, pupil-less eyes and her violet hair was done up in a short, somewhat spiky ponytail. In terms of clothing, it was close to the barest minimum one could wear without being thought to be indecent in public. The woman wore a tan overcoat, complete with a fitted mesh bodysuit that stretched from her neck down to her thighs, in addition to a dark orange mini skirt. She also had a leaf forehead protector on her forehead, a small pendant that looked like a snake fang on a thick cord, a wristwatch, and shin guards. Lastly, she wore a dark blue belt around her waist that connected to her skirt, which had an appendage-like sash. This isn't the time to be celebrating. I'm your next proctor, Anko Mitarashi, said the woman. You're early, again, said Ibiki. Anko blushed in embarrassment at his blunt statement. She then looked around the room, her expression morphing into one of disappointed confusion. How many are there? Ibiki, you let all these guys pass. Your test was too easy, you must be getting soft, commented Anko. Or it could be a stronger group of candidates this year, replied Ibiki. Trust me, when I'm through with them, more than half will be eliminated, she said with a sadistic smirk. More than half? Asked Sakura fearfully. This is going to be fun. You maggots have had it easy so far, but things are going to be different now. Go home now and I'll tell your squad leaders where and when to meet me for the second exam. Dismissed, said Anko. Line break. The next day. Line break. The genin were standing in front of a forest surrounded by metal gates 3 meters high with heaps of locks and warning signs. Whoa, nice place. What is it? Said Naruto. This is the location for the second stage of the exam, the 44th battle training zone, but we call it the Forest of Death, said Anko. Wow, this place creeps me out, said Sakura. Well, we call it the Forest of Death for a reason and soon enough you're going to find out why, said Anko grinning. Naruto huffed before changing his tone. They call it the Forest of Death for a reason and soon enough you're going to find out why. Who do you think you're trying to intimidate? Do your worst, mocked Naruto. So looks like we've got a tough guy, said Anko smiling, before throwing a kunai at Naruto. Mere centimeters before it cut his face, Naruto grabbed it. Anko disappeared behind him, but Naruto was ready and had pulled out his katana, holding it centimeters from Anko's neck. Now Anko, I asked you who you think you're intimidating, but obviously you don't know. I am Naruto Uzumaki, and it would do you well to not underestimate me," said Naruto, flashing his eyes red for a moment so Anko could see. Anko was surprised for a moment before calming herself down. "I guess you're not all bark after all," said Anko, smiling, unperturbed by the sword on her neck. Naruto grinned and handed her back her kunai but sliced it across his finger first. Anko was excited at the sight of blood and Naruto noticed this. While he handed her back the kunai, he whispered one more thing to her. "Oh Anko, do try and control yourself, it's not fitting to the image of a Junin and an examiner," said Naruto with a small smirk. Anko had to be the one to get the last word in though, so she quickly grabbed his finger and soused on it deeply while moaning, causing Naruto to shiver. "Your blood tastes delicious," whispered Anko, before she went back to the front. "Now, before we begin this test, I have something you all need to sign and agree to. It is a standard consent form which shows that if you die, the Leaf and I are in no way accountable, otherwise if you die in there, I would be held responsible," said Anko, who then started laughing. "This test is a survival test. Your goal is to get through the battle zone. You will each enter through one of the 44 entrances and need to make your way to the center, to a locked tower. To pass, all you need to do is get a set of these two scrolls, one heaven and the other earth, and arrive at the tower with all of your teammates," finished Anko. "Both scrolls?" asked Sasuke. "Yes, so half will be going after the heaven scroll while the other half will be going after the earth scroll. Anything goes, but there is only one rule, you must never open either scroll," said Anko seriously. Line break. The genin signed the forms and were about to hand them in. "Hey Haku, can you use your ice mirrors to see things even if you aren't in them?" asked Naruto. "Yes, I can." "Why?" asked Haku. "Make a mirror in the tent so we can see which scroll the other teams have so we know who we should go after, but make sure no one sees it," said Naruto. Haku made a mirror and when they handed in their forms and received a heaven scroll, Haku told Naruto all the teams were given an earth scroll. Naruto looked at all the teams and decided one of the teams from the sand village would be the easiest. Line break. All the genin arrived at a gate and waited until the signal was given at 3 in the afternoon. Time passed until there were 10 seconds to go. "Alright maggots, the second test begins in 3, 2, 1, now," announced Anko. The gates opened, and all the teams rushed in. Only 5 minutes in and the sounds of a team screaming were heard outside of the forest. "Looks like the fun has begun," said Anko. Line break. With Team 7. Line break. "Okay, I'm going to go ambush one of the sand teams. The rest of you head to the tower," said Naruto. "Just why should we listen to you, loser?" asked Sasuke. "Yeah, what can you do on your own?" asked Sakura. Naruto entered his tailless fox form, causing a shiver to run down everyone's spine upon spotting his gaze. "I can get the scroll. Keep in mind that I am stronger than all three of you when it comes to pure power. Also, I don't go back on my word, so trust me, I'll get the scroll," declared Naruto confidently. Sasuke grumbled, but he knew that Naruto was right and that he was capable the best suited for this task. "Fine, but if you die loser, I'll bring you back and kill you again for making us fail," said Sasuke while smirking. "Same goes for you, Uchiha. After all, you won't be able to avenge anyone if you're dead," replied Naruto arrogantly. Sasuke huffed and he along with Sakura left hopped up to the tree line. "Be careful," said Haku, before following the pair. "I will," thought Naruto. Line break. With Naruto. Line break. Naruto was tracking down the sand team due to his enhanced sense of smell and Kyuubi's chakra. He tracked them down and saw that they were setting up traps. One had wire which he was looping around the trees and certain branches, while the other was placing paper bombs in the spots furthest away from any ninja wire, to trap those who escaped the wire, while the last kept watch. Seeing his chance, Naruto knocked out the one on watch and caught his body so he wouldn't make a sound. The remaining sand ninja were oblivious to Naruto's infiltration. Naruto then threw a three-pronged kunai in between both, but a fair distance away from them, flashed halfway to it in a blaze of orange, which caused him to appear directly in between them, and proceeded to use wind release. Vacuum sword on the first, sending him flying into a tree and out cold, before he quickly used fire style, grand fireball jutsu on the other. The sand ninja dodged, but Naruto appeared behind him and gave him a quick hit with the handle of his sword, knocking him out cold. Naruto searched him and found the earth scroll they needed, pocketed it, and quickly left to rejoin his team. Line break. With Sasuke, Sakura and Haku. Line break. Sasuke, Sakura and Haku were hopping along the trees and were about halfway to the tower when Sasuke felt that they were being followed. Sasuke put his hand out and mouthed the word, followed, to the group, receiving 2 nods of acknowledgement in return. They set up a few wire traps which would launch kunai if tripped, but other than that kept going as fast as they could to the tower. When they were only about 500 meters away, a kunai with an explosive tag attached to it landed near them. They all jumped away before it exploded and looked in the direction it came from. A grass ninja with a straw hat was there and looked at Sasuke before speaking. I think your trap-making skills need some work, although maybe you were in a rush. After all, the prey must never let down its guard in the face of its predator, said the ninja, leveling a glare on them, which made them all see their deaths playing out in a brutal fashion. Sasuke and Sakura were greatly affected, but Haku dealt with it easily. Oh ho, it seems that you aren't as helpless as I thought, commented the ninja, after seeing Haku pull out some of his senbon. He charged forward and Haku threw his senbon around his feet, effectively stopping him in place for a moment, before he then created 5 ice mirrors and used them to retreat, while grabbing Sasuke and Sakura. It would seem that the boy possesses a rare ice bloodline, interesting, thought the ninja, before turning into mud. Line break. Haku shook Sasuke and Sakura until they came to their senses, which took a while. What was that thing? Asked Sakura, who was still rather shaken. His eyes, I saw my own death. How come you weren't affected, Haku? Asked Sasuke, who was breathing heavily. It's simple, when I was with Zabuza my life was always in danger, so I learned to not fear my death, as it has to happen sometime, said Haku, smiling sadly. In the meantime, we should rest up, because he might come back. I'll take first watch, Haku announced, leaving the others to get a grip on their sanity again, before they would need to head out. Line break. With Naruto. Line break. Naruto was halfway to his team when he felt a dark presence near him. He turned in time to parry a sword strike with his own sword. However, the unusual thing about the sword that had attacked him was that this sword was being held by a tongue. Naruto jumped back to avoid the second slash aimed at his head and to survey his opponent. It was a grass ninja wearing a straw hat and had an abnormally long tongue. Well, it seems that you and your team aren't as helpless as I thought it would seem, said the ninja while swallowing his sword, much to Naruto's quiet disgust. The ninja then proceeded to release some of his killer intent, but Naruto released twice as much. What did you do to my team? Also, why do you reek of snake? Asked Naruto. Interesting, to think you can stand up and return my killing intent. As for your first question, I gave your friend, Haku, I believe his name was, a reason to not be foolish and attack me again, and I also gave Sasuke a little mark which will give him the power he seeks, said the ninja. Lastly, I reek of snake as you put it, because I am Orochimaru, the snake Sannin. Try to remember that, as you will have to, if you wish to be prepared for what is coming. Also, I suggest you get back to your team before my sound ninja, take care of them. Orochimaru laughed, while turning into mud, leaving Naruto alone in the forest again. I have to get back to the others, said Naruto nervously, and with that he was off, blasting through the treetops. Line break. Naruto arrived onto a scene he didn't wish to see again. Haku, Sasuke, and Lee were unconscious, Sakura was badly beaten and bleeding, Choji looked beaten up but was on his feet, Ino was passed out and being held by Shikamaru, who looked relatively unharmed. The area they were in was torn up and all the trees around the clearing were missing branches from heavy hits. What happened here? Asked Naruto from the branch he was standing on. Oh great, more leaf ninja. You guys are like cockroaches, slam one down and 2 more crawl out, said the bandaged sound ninja. You will pay for hurting my friends, growled Naruto, transforming into his tailless form. Naruto threw out 3-pronged kunai and flashed around laying kicks to the sound ninja. In no time at all, the 3 enemy ninja was exhausted and badly beaten. While this was going on, almost all genin conscious were thinking, "Is this Naruto?" Naruto was about to punch the mummified ninja in the gut but stopped a hair away from doing so as he felt a spike of chakra behind him. Sasuke rose up from the ground, a swirl of purple chakra wrapping around his form, with strange marks covering half of his body. "Sakura, who did this to you?" he asked in a calm voice. "We did, and you're going to experience the same thing they did," boasted one of the sound ninja. "Zaku, no, wait," cried the ninja Naruto was next to. "Slicing sound wave," yelled Zaku, while blasting air out of his palms at Sasuke, Haku, Sakura and Lee. When the dust cleared, nothing was there. "See Dosu, nothing to worry about," said Zaku, before Sasuke appeared behind him and struck him with his forearm, sending him into Naruto, who stabbed both his arms with a pair of kunai, with a set of quick jabs, before kicking him away. Sasuke then appeared behind the loudmouth sound genin's form and grabbed his arms at the wrist, while placing his right foot on his back. "You seem very proud of these arms, very attached to them," said Sasuke, while pulling his arms. What are you doing?" asked Zaku frightfully, before crying out in pain, due to having his arms brutally dislocated. "Looks like you're the only one left," stated Sasuke, before walking to Dosu. "No, stop," yelled Sakura, before clamping onto Sasuke from behind. "Please stop," she whimpered. Sasuke turned and looked at her for a moment, before the marks begun to recede. However, there was nothing holding Naruto back, who was still enraged and charged at Dosu. Naruto plunged his arm into Dosu's shoulder, who then cried out in pain. Naruto raised his sword and was about to decapitate him, before someone screamed, "Naruto, stop!" Naruto looked up and saw Tenten was the one who had screamed, with Neji next to her on a high tree branch. He then turned back to Dosu, who was trying not to show fear but failing, due to having a sword only centimeters from his neck. When Naruto took a proper look at his eyes though, he saw something that reminded him of himself and Sasuke. In his eyes, he saw pain and loneliness. He released Kyuubi's chakra and ripped his arm out of Dosu's shoulder, before blasting it with chakra, crudely stopping the wound from bleeding any further. Naruto then ignored the onlookers, not meeting anyone's gaze as he walked to Haku's form and observed it. The best guess Naruto could make was that Haku had some type of poison in his body, judging by the even paler than usual hue of his skin. "You two are strong, in fact, too strong for us," said Dosu in pain. "We will make a trade. We will give you our scrolls if you spare us," said Dosu. "Keep it," said Naruto, who pulled out their heaven scroll, as well as the earth scroll, which he had successfully taken from the sand team. "But when you see Orochimaru, tell him I'm going to take his head for what he has done," said Naruto coldly, releasing a massive amount of killer intent. "Very well. Next time though, we won't run from you. We will fight," said Dosu, while picking up his teammates and then leaving as fast as he could. After he left, there was an uncomfortable silence before Naruto spoke up. "Hey Choji, you got any chips? I'm starving," asked Naruto, giving a cheerful laugh, while everyone blinked and stared at him in disbelief, wondering how his personality could change from serious to childish in moments. "What? I'm hungry. I ran across half the forest to get here," he said, noticing everyone's looks. Choji threw him a packet of chips which he devoured in seconds, offering Choji the last chip which he happily accepted. Line break. Ino went over to Sakura and Tenten shook Lee awake. "Sakura, what's the deal with Naruto?" asked Ino. "He has changed a lot since the academy. That part we remember from the academy is still there somewhere, but sometimes he becomes a totally different person and acts serious, almost scary even, but he is still nothing compared to Sasuke," she replied. Ino stored that bit of information away, before getting on Sakura's case for hugging Sasuke, to which she responded in kind, teasing her about how she is jealous. Line break. Shikamaru and Choji were sitting with Naruto, both boys giving the blonde furtive curious glances until he spoke up. What? Asked Naruto somewhat irritably. They looked at him uncertainly, before Choji asked, what was that all about? What was what about? He replied, feigning stupidity. When did you get so serious? Supplied Shikamaru, who was also intrigued about Naruto's change in personality. Oh, that. I don't like anyone who hurts people who are precious to me. Naruto replied seriously. Choji accepted this, while Shikamaru was wondering when Naruto changed. Line break. Neji was the most suspicious of the bystanders, as his Byakugan had been activated when he arrived and saw traces of purple chakra on the Uchiha, and red on the Uzumaki. The strangest thing was that both of their chakras appeared corrupted. Interesting, thought Neji, before jumping down to Lee and Tenten. Line break. After a while, the Leaf Ninja left 3 at a time until it was Sasuke, Sakura, and Naruto left, with Haku, who was still passed out. We need to get to the tower. Haku needs medical attention now, stated Naruto, while picking him up, slinging his arm over his shoulders. Sasuke nodded as Sakura helped him up, with the group then setting off, heading to the tower while Sakura told Naruto what happened, detailing about how Orochimaru ambushed them twice, how Haku got stabbed with that blade he wielded with his tongue, how Sasuke had gotten bitten, and lastly, how she tried fighting of the Sound Ninja until Lee and Team 10 arrived. Sakura, know this, if you don't train, you are only a burden to this team, said Naruto flatly. Sakura was going to retort, but Naruto's glare silenced her, causing her to give a meek nod instead. Line break. They arrived at the tower with no trouble and entered to find a scroll with writing on it hanging from the wall, which Sakura started reading. If qualities of heaven are your desire, acquire wisdom to take your mind higher. If earthly qualities are what you lack, train your body and prepare to attack. When heaven and earth are open together, the perilous path will be righteous forever. This something is the secret way that guides us from this place today. She finished. Something? Questioned Sasuke. It looks like there is a word missing or something, replied Sakura. I think it means we should open the scrolls now. Naruto and Sakura opened one each when Sakura said, it's a person. Sasuke and Naruto realized it was a summoning and both told Sakura to throw her scroll, as Naruto had already thrown his and placed Haku behind him, drawing his sword in case it was an enemy. The scrolls exploded into smoke, and in the smoke, there was a man. They waited for the smoke to clear until the person was visible. It's you, said Sasuke, while Naruto sheathed his sword and was grinning like a fox. Hey guys, long time no see, said Iruka smiling. Iruka-sensei, what are you doing here? Asked Naruto. I'm here to welcome you back and congratulate you on passing the second phase of the Chunin exams, said Iruka smiling. Iruka told them about the purpose of the second exam, which, in addition to survival, was to test the integrity of the ninja to not read classified documents, or in this case, the scrolls. After that, he bid them farewell, and they went into the tower's inner area. Line break. Naruto found out that Kiba's team had already arrived, as well as Gaara's team. Since there were still 2 days until the exams were over, Naruto decided to work on his Flying Thunder God technique in an attempt to finally be able to move all the way to the kunai. After placing Haku in the designated medical ward so they could look him over due to the poison from Orochimaru, he looked around for a place where he could be alone and found that the arena, which depicted a gigantic set of hands making a seal with a viewing platform, was completely empty. He then got to work and critically examined the seal and compared it to what he saw in the scroll he stole back when he was an academy student. My memory isn't that fresh, but I'm pretty sure that last symbol was different. Well, there can't be any harm in testing it out, thought Naruto. Line break. After 2 painstakingly long hours, Naruto had made new seals with the different symbol and equipped all of his 3-pronged kunai with them. He was about to test them out when Gaara approached him. Naruto Uzumaki, he said in that same monotonous tone he always used. Gaara, replied Naruto, inclining his head slightly to see Gaara, as the blonde was sitting on the floor. Would you like to sit down? Offered Naruto, gesturing to the floor next to him. Gaara politely declined, but went on to speak. When you mentioned that word to me, friends, I could not understand you. I thought you were someone who could understand my pain. Why does me having friends make you think I don't understand your pain? Inquired Naruto. Those with friends cannot understand me, as I live only for myself and to prove my existence. It is because of my loneliness that I am, as I am. I was born in the loneliness. I came into this world by taking the life of what I would have called my mother, at which point I was constantly feared for what I contained. I thought I could trust people in my naivety, but my father disproved this with his constant assassination attempts on my life, the life of his own flesh and blood. He paused before continuing. I realized that I couldn't trust my father and he realized that he couldn't kill me, so he sent me to my uncle. I thought it was then that I had someone I could trust, but this was a lie, as one day he was ordered to kill me by my father. However, despite this order, he told me after I had almost killed him, that he could have declined. It was then that I realized I had no one, which was further punctuated by the fact that he told me he hated me and in a last-ditch effort, gave up his life in an attempt to kill me. Finished Gaara. Naruto looked into his eyes and thought he saw barely concealed anguish in them. Tell me, why is it that you fight Uzumaki? Asked Gaara. I fight to protect those important to me. A friend of mine once told me that if you have someone to fight for, you become truly strong. Said Naruto. I don't understand, others make you weak and can cause you to die if you rely on them. Said Gaara confused. Gaara, I make you this promise, I will make you understand, because even though you don't believe it, I have suffered just as you have, but I found a way to achieve true strength and it is this that I will show you. Said Naruto. I think you are a fool, Uzumaki, but if you can prove that my way is wrong and your way is better, I will try to change. However, if you cannot prove your way is better than mine, I will crush you, drench my sand in your blood, and prove my existence. Stated Gaara, before walking off. Now one test should be all I need. Said Naruto, who picked up a three-pronged kunai and jumped down to the arena. Here goes something. Said Naruto, before he threw his kunai at the wall. The kunai embedded itself into the wall and Naruto flashed away in a blur of orange. Please tell me it worked. Thought Naruto as he slowly opened his eyes and saw that he made it all the way to the kunai. Awesome. It worked. Shouted Naruto ecstatically, before he decided to turn in for the day. Line break. 2 days later. Line break. The second part of the exams was now over. The teams that made it were Team 7, Team 8 and Team 10, Guy's team, the Sound team, the Sand team, Kabuto's team, and a team from the Hidden Stone Village. The teams assembled in the arena that Naruto had been practicing in before, with the Hokage standing in front of the Genin, with their Junin behind him. He told them that the Chunin exams serve the purpose of not only testing ninja, but also of moderating the levels of the ninja in each nation, as well as developing friendship. Just tell me the details of the exam, I can handle anything you can throw at me. Said Gaara, once the Hokage finished speaking and answering other questions. Very well, I will now tell you exactly what the details of the third exam are. Said the Hokage. Just then, Hayate appeared, kneeling and bowing in front of the Hokage, and asked him if he could speak first, to which the Hokage obliged. Hayate explained that they needed to hold a preliminary as there were too many people, which was met with cries of outrage, but he justified it by talking about the fact that many important nobles and feudal lords would be coming to see them and they didn't want to waste their time, and that they were only looking for the best of the best shinobi. The preliminaries will begin immediately. If any of you aren't in top physical condition, now is the time to quit. Said Hayate. Kabuto gave up, saying his body was in no condition to fight right now, but no one else did. Sakura wanted Sasuke too, but he told her that the only reason he fights is to test himself and that all the best are here. So what am I supposed to do? Just watch you suffer. I can't bear to watch. Cried Sakura. Then don't watch, but stay out of it, it has nothing to do with you. I am an Avenger, whether I become a Chunin or not means less than nothing to me. My goal is to test myself against the best and the best of the best are all here. Replied Sasuke. Sasuke, she just cares about you, you don't have to be so mean. A flat, mind you own business would have been enough. Said Naruto calmly. Naruto, you are one of the ones I want to fight the most. Said Sasuke grinning, which caused Naruto to grin back. Now, the preliminaries will follow sudden death elimination of one-on-one matches, with only the winner moving on to the third exam. As for the rules, there are none, you will fight until one dies, concedes defeat, or is rendered physically incapable of continuing. Naturally, those who are losing are encouraged to quit, to avoid having a fatal outcome. Also, as proctor, I will intervene if the situation seems hopeless, to save as many lives as possible. Now we will see what fate is in store for you, said Hayate. Anko spoke a command into a headset and a panel on the back wall diagonal from the hands opened, revealing a screen. The panel you see will give the names of the two competitors who are chosen completely at random. I guess there is nothing more to say, so let's begin, concluded Hayate. The screen begun going through names and landed on Sasuke Uchiha vs Yoroi Akato, the Avenger. Could everyone whose name was not just shown, please go to the upper level, requested Hayate. Kakashi walked by Sasuke and said, don't use your Sharingan, if you let that curse seal take over, I'll have to jump in and stop the match. Good luck. Stop the match, thought Sasuke, in fear of not being able to fight. Good. Sasuke Uchiha, Yoroi Akato, are you ready? Asked Hayate. Yeah, confirmed Sasuke. Yes, agreed Yoroi. Yoroi's appearance was greatly concealed by the mask he wore around his mouth that hung to around his neck, sunglasses that obscured his eyes and his forehead protector which he wore like a bandana. He also wore what appeared to be the standard attire of his team, consisting of a high-collared, sleeveless, navy blue shirt, with a short-sleeved, white one underneath, a simple obi around his waist, pants, sandals and fingerless gloves. In that case, let the first match of the preliminaries begin, announced Hayate. Sasuke jumped back and pulled out a kunai while Yoroi put his hand in front of his body and surrounded it with chakra. Yoroi flung 3 shuriken at Sasuke, who sent them back with his kunai. Ow! Cringed Sasuke, feeling a flare of pain from his shoulder. Damn it! This thing is responding to even the slightest bit of my chakra, thought Sasuke, as he raised his hand to his curse seal. You're mine, shouted Yoroi, as he charged at Sasuke. Sasuke swept his leg and locked Yoroi's arm between his legs. Got him, Sasuke smirked, thinking he had him captured, but then Yoroi turned his hand around and grabbed Sasuke's collar. I feel so weak, thought Sasuke. Yoroi then brought his arm down and intended to hit Sasuke's solar plexus, but Sasuke released his hold and slid away along the tiled floor. Got you, said Yoroi, who leapt up and grabbed Sasuke by his head and pushed him to the ground. My chakra, what are you doing? Gasped Sasuke. Ha ha, you're just noticing it now, are you? Laughed Yoroi. So weak, what am I going to do? Thought Sasuke. Line break. Flashback. Line break. Sasuke. Sakura, wake up, he's coming, whispered Haku. Who? Naruto? Asked Sasuke. No, it's not Naruto, it's that grass ninja, replied Haku quickly. We have to move now, Haku urged, already gathering his things. All right, let's move, said Sasuke. After they had run for about 10 minutes, they stopped in place. Okay, I think we lost him, Haku started to say, before he was slashed from behind by a sword attached to the grass ninja's mouth, who had just appeared behind the group, before following up his slash by quickly kicking Haku away, sending him face first into a tree and into the land of unconsciousness. Looks like I found a couple of mice, said the grass ninja, with the sword still hanging in the grasp of his tongue. Sasuke trembled as he saw Haku unconscious, while Sakura appeared even worse off than him. Is this what it feels like to be weak? Thought Sasuke. Line break. End flashback. Line break. I won't lose here, said Sasuke. Sasuke coiled up his legs and extended them quickly, pushing Yoroi off him. When he was getting up, he saw Lee. That's it, Sasuke thought, before charging at Yoroi with renewed intent. Sasuke flipped onto his hand and gave Yoroi a powerful super kick, which sent him into the air. Sasuke then used the dancing leaf shadow technique and appeared behind Yoroi in midair. Okay, I'll admit, I borrowed that move, but from here, it's all original, said Sasuke. Sasuke swung his leg to kick Yoroi in the ribs. Yoroi blocked it, but it was a distraction, as Sasuke used the momentum to swing his arm up and nail Yoroi in his neck and send him flying down. Come back, I'm not done yet, yelled Sasuke, who then kicked him down and finally gave him an axe kick, smashing him onto the floor while saying, Lion's Barrage. Hayate looked at Yoroi and Sasuke. Yoroi was unconscious, and Sasuke was still conscious, but clearly tired. Winner. Sasuke Uchiha, Hayate announced. Kakashi appeared behind Sasuke and said, "Let's go, we need to get that mark sealed up." "Can't we go after the matches?" asked Sasuke. "No, sorry," said Kakashi, giving his eye smile. Line break. The board spit out 2 more names. Next match, Shino Aburame vs Zaku Abumi. Will the contestants please come down? Called Hayate. Line break. Sasuke and Kakashi were in a dimly lit room, with a multitude of candles being the only light source. Sasuke was shirtless and sat in the middle of a large seal array. "Okay Sasuke, this seal I'm about to put on you will seal up the curse mark, however, it is only as strong as your will, so you have to make sure it doesn't break," said Kakashi. Kakashi made numerous hand signs before saying, "Curse sealing." Sasuke cried out in pain for a while as all the kanji crawled across the floor in his body and went inside the curse mark, forming a ring around the mark, at which point he passed out. Line break. "If you fight me, you won't be able to recover. Forfeit," said Shino in his stoic monotone voice. "Hey, what do you know, looks like I have a bit of movement in one," said Zaku, as his left arm started twitching, before he pulled it out of the sling and aimed it at Shino. "One good arm is all I need to beat you," shouted Zaku, as he charged at Shino. Zaku attempted a straight punch at Shino's face, but Shino raised his arm and blocked it. "I told you, you can't beat me," spoke Shino. "Oh yeah, slicing sound wave," shouted Zaku, as air came rushing out of the hole in his palm, which blasted Shino away. Line break. "My, you've grown, Kakashi, to think you can perform the curse sealing now," said Orochimaru, who appeared from behind a pillar. "You, what are you doing here?" demanded Kakashi, taking a defensive stance. "Long time no see, Kakashi, but I didn't come here for you. I have some business with that boy behind you," replied Orochimaru. "What do you want with Sasuke?" asked Kakashi, narrowing his single eye. "It seems as though you have gained something since the last time we met, the Sharingan in your left eye, how I envy your good fortune," said Orochimaru, who then paused before continuing. "It is only fair that I should want it too. Don't you think? The power of the Uchiha," finished Orochimaru. Line break. Shino calmly stood up and stared down Zaku. "I told you, you can't beat me, look behind you," said Shino. Zaku looked behind him and his eyes widened, seeing heaps of bugs when Shino spoke again. "You are trapped, now you have one arm which you can use to attack me, but if you do, my bugs will be upon you. On the other hand, you could attack my bugs, but that would leave you open to me. It's always a good idea to have an ace in the hole," finished Shino, who began to gather up his chakra, while forming the ram sign. Line break. "You know, this sound village that everyone is so curious about, it's mine," said Orochimaru. "You see, in order to play the game, you need pieces to put on the chessboard, willing pawns," elaborated Orochimaru. "So, is Sasuke one of these pawns?" asked Kakashi. "No, Sasuke is a much more valuable piece than a pawn," said Orochimaru. Line break. Zaku's other arm started to twitch, and he pulled it out of his sling, giving a vicious smirk. "Hey, what do you know, I got movement in my other arm as well. Always have an ace in the hole, isn't that what you said?" asked Zaku, who then fully extended his arm and pointed one at Shino and one at the bugs. "Slicing sound wave," shouted Zaku. However, instead of a burst of wind shooting out of his hands towards his foes, nothing came out of his wind holes and instead, his arms were blasted off at the elbow. "Ugh, what is this?" cried Zaku in pain. Shino appeared behind Zaku and spoke, "I plugged up both of your arms just in case you were faking. It seems I was wise to do so. While I did say an ace in the hole is good, 2 aces in the hole is better," said Shino, who then punched Zaku in the back of his neck, sending him sprawling on the ground and almost unconscious. Hayate checked on Zaku briefly, before announcing to all, "Winner, Shino Aburame." Line break. Orochimaru stepped forward towards Sasuke and in response, Kakashi charged up a lighting blade. "Take one more step and one of us will die here. I don't care if you're one of the Sannin, the legendary 3 ninja, come any closer to Sasuke and I'll kill you," shouted Kakashi, his lone eye blazing in fury. Orochimaru started laughing and then looked Kakashi straight in the eye, completely unperturbed by the death threat. Kakashi, you're very brave, but also very stupid. I'll leave for now, but Sasuke is an avenger and one day he will come looking for me in search of power, said Orochimaru, as he walked away. Kakashi kept his guard up as he watched the traitorous Sanin's back retreating, before he stopped walking and said, unless you follow through with your threat to kill me, that is, stated Orochimaru, while releasing a bit of bloodlust. Kakashi was rattled but kept his lighting blade going in an attempt to hide his fear. Orochimaru kept laughing and walked away, until he had completely disappeared from sight. One of us will die here. I must have been out of my mind, thought Kakashi in fear. Kakashi then used a body flicker and appeared behind Sakura, Haku, and Naruto. Oh Kakashi-sensei, you're back. How's Sasuke? Asked Sakura. Oh, he's fine, but I think you should be more worried about yourself now. Look, said Kakashi, pointing towards the board as it showed the hardships of life. Good luck, Sakura, said Haku. Do your best, said Naruto. Sakura walked down and defiantly looked Kin in the eye. You won't get the upper hand on me so easily this time, proclaimed Sakura. Ha, yeah, right. You're just a pretty little girl who should never have become a kunoichi, scoffed Kin. Kin had very long black hair, almost reaching down to the ground, tied by a violet ribbon right near the end, and black eyes. She wore a forehead protector, a pale green vest, similar to a flak jacket, and snake-patterned pants and scarf. Let the third match begin, announced Hayate. Sakura pulled out 3 shuriken and threw them, but Kin deflected them with needles. Needles? Wondered Sakura. Kin pulled out 2 needles and threw them at Sakura. Sakura dodged only to have to dodge another 2 needles, except one had a bell. This is a genjutsu, thought Sakura. Sakura pulled out a kunai and cut the back of her hand, dispelling the genjutsu affecting her. Sakura charged at Kin with the kunai in front of her. Kin pulled the string attached to the needle with the bell, expecting her genjutsu to take a hold of Sakura, and therefore was shocked when Sakura kept charging straight at her. Sakura punched her in the face with a chakra-infused fist, sending Kin flying. While Kin was dizzy from the hit, Sakura got behind her and held the kunai to her throat. Surrender, said Sakura. How is it you weren't affected by the genjutsu? Asked Kin. Just look at the kunai pressed against your throat, said Sakura. Kin looked and saw blood on it, but it wasn't hers. I may not be as strong as my teammates, but my strength is my knowledge, and I knew straight away you had attempted a genjutsu, so I inflicted pain on myself to break it, knowing that you wouldn't expect a fangirl to know that, or to know how to break out of it. Finished Sakura. Hayate waited to see if Kin could get out of her predicament, and after seeing she couldn't, called the match. Winner Sakura Haruno, announced Hayate. Sakura walked back up to her team's area, where she was met with a lot of praise from Lee, a simple congratulations from Haku, and a small smile and nod from Naruto. Line break. On with the next match, said Hayate, as the board started going through names before landing on the next batch of fighters. Neji Hyuga vs Hinata Hyuga. Both walked down, Neji with a purposeful stride, and Hinata with a timid gait. I never thought that we would have to fight each other, Hinata, said Neji. Nor I, brother, replied Hinata. Huh, brother. Are they brother and sister? Asked Naruto, while slightly raising his left eyebrow. No, they're both members of the Hyuga clan. Technically, they're cousins, answered Kakashi. Still, they're family, it must be hard for them, said Sakura. It may not be as hard you think. I heard that there is some bad blood between the main and branch houses. The branch family, which Neji is a part of, is upset with something the main family, which Hinata is a part of, did. Additionally, Neji is considered a genius of the clan, while Hinata is seen as a disgrace. Furthermore, Neji being a branch member is forced into being under the control of the main branch. Finished Lee. Give up, Hinata. You can't deceive my eyes. When you looked up, you remembered your past, your bitter past. Then you glanced down and thought what would happen if you fought me and realized you would lose. Also, your habit of raising your arm up in front of yourself while touching your lip is your way of putting a wall between us. People can't change. Once a failure, always a failure. You never really wanted to be in the Chunin exams, but to apply, you need a team of 3 and you didn't want to let Kiba or Shino down, didn't you? Said Neji with increasing intensity, causing the timid form of Hinata to tremble. No, you're wrong, I wanted to see if I could change. Said Hinata, shakily. Like I said, once a failure always a failure. People can't change. Said Neji. Don't listen to him, Hinata, me and Shino believe in you. You can change. Said Kiba. Some fire has returned to her eyes. Thought Neji. Hinata made hand signs before shouting, Byakugan. Hinata took a stance and said, defend yourself, brother. Neji mirrored the stance. Let the 4th match begin. Said Hayate. Neji charged and shot an open palm strike at Hinata which she blocked with her own palm thrust to the inside of Neji's arm, which sent chakra flying out of their hands. This kept up until Hinata struck Neji in his stomach. Did she get him? Asked Sakura. Kakashi raised his headband and had a look. Amazing. Was all he said, much to Sakura's confusion. Neji pulled Hinata's sleeve back and there were a bunch of angry-looking circular red marks on her arm. You mean, all this time, you were? Mumbled Hinata. Yes, I have sealed all the chakra points in your arms. You can no longer use the gentle fist, as you can no longer eject chakra from your hands. Give up, commanded Neji. Hinata trembled, unsure of herself, when Neji spoke up again. Hinata, you are the pampered offspring of the main branch. Despite this, you are too gentle and caring. You should never have become a shinobi. As a shinobi, you are meant to be cruel, uncaring, and hold no sympathy for others in your way. You can't do this as it conflicts with your very nature and therefore you are suffering. Spoke Neji condescendingly. Brother, while it is true I have been suffering, you have been suffering much more than I. Hinata said softly. Neji's eyes hardened in an instant and he sent 2 palm thrusts, one to her gut and one to her face, sending her form crashing to the ground. She then tried to raise herself off the floor, getting on her hands and knees, but coughed up a fair bit of blood after, causing her to drop back down for a moment, as she painted the ground red with her blood. After regaining herself, she attempted to get up again and managed to regain a vertical base, but Hayate could tell it was over and was about to say so. Before Hayate could end the match, Neji charged at Hinata with murder in his eyes. As Neji was about 2 meters away from striking Hinata, Kakashi, Kurenai, Guy, and Hayate jumped in to save Hinata. Neji, you told me you wouldn't let this whole main branch thing affect you. Said Guy. Hinata coughed up more blood and Kurenai called for medics. Kiba jumped down to attack Neji in a fit of rage, but Shino created a wall with his bugs, stopping him. You'll pay. You hear me? I'll get you. Hollered Kiba. HMPH*, stop cheering, it is embarrassing and there is no way you can beat me. Scoffed Neji, before walking off. As Neji walked back up, Naruto confronted him. I may not know what is going on in your clan, but to belittle and crush a person's self-esteem just because you have a grudge is childish. If I meet you in a battle during the Chunin exams, I will show you people can change and that being a genius does not make you better than others. Said Naruto quietly, walking away before Neji could respond. Line break. The board started going through names and landed on Haku vs Masumi Tsurugi. Both contestants came down when Masumi spoke up. As soon as the battle begins, forfeit once I activate my jutsu, or you will die. Cautioned Masumi. Masumi looked identical to Yoroi, with the only exception being he wore glasses which enabled others to see his eyes, in contrast to Yoroi's, which were tinted. Haku started at him with indifference before replying. My whole life has been a battle of life or death with questionable odds. I have survived through it all. I suggest you don't become arrogant, as in my life, those who were arrogant died. Said Haku drawing a needle. Let the 5th match begin. Announced Hayate. Masumi charged at Haku, while Haku threw his needle right at Masumi's face. Masumi blocked the needle by crossing both arms in front of his face. Masumi lowered his arms and resumed his charge and punched Haku, who blocked with his palm. Masumi then laughed and dislocated all of his bones and wrapped himself around Haku. Give up or die, said Masumi arrogantly. Didn't I say don't get arrogant? Questioned Haku, who appeared in front of Masumi while he was still wrapped around another Haku. How? Begun Masumi, before Haku launched 7 needles all at Masumi's spinal column, making it so he couldn't dislocate his bones and joints at will anymore, effectively ending his shinobi career. Haku had begun walking away before he momentarily paused to say one word, boom. At which point his ice clone exploded, sending ice shards into Masumi, knocking him out cold. Winner, Haku, said Hayate, before medics came out and took Masumi away. Nice work, Haku, said Naruto when Haku arrived. Thank you Naruto, but you should prepare, your match is yet to happen, said Haku humbly. The board went through names again before landing on Gaara vs Onitsuchi, the end and a super pervert. Gaara appeared on the floor in a flash of sand, while his opponent jumped down to the stadium and landed shaking the floor. Onitsuchi was a burly-looking man reaching almost 2 meters in height and looked like a typical bodybuilder with a shaved head. He was shirtless and wore dark brown form-fitting pants with a rock forehead protector tied around his left bicep. Haha, a puny kid like you has no chance of beating me, forfeit now or I will crush you, said Onitsuchi in a deep booming voice. Gaara's response was to uncork his gourd, look Onitsuchi right in the eye and say, you will die. Quickly. Let the 6th match begin, said Hayate. Onitsuchi went through hand signs before calling the name of his jutsu. Rock burial, said Onitsuchi, as the ground started to shake. The ground split apart between the two combatants, looking as though an earthquake had struck, bringing up heaps of rocks and chunks of debris, which went flying at Gaara and buried him. I win, said Onitsuchi, as he started walking away. All of a sudden, all the rocks surrounding Gaara were blasted away and Gaara was left unscathed. Did you? Asked Gaara, who used his sand to demolish all the rocks laying on the floor, grinding them into dust, before sending a massive wave of sand at Onitsuchi and quickly surrounded him, leaving only his face uncovered. This is a real burial. Sand burial, said Gaara, clenching his fist and crushing Onitsuchi, causing him to cry out in pain before dying in a storm of blood. I win, said Gaara in his stoic voice, before he vanished in a blur of sand, reappearing near the rest of his team. Winner, Gaara, said Hayate. Line break. The board went through names again before landing on Temari vs Ino Yamanaka. Temari and Ino both walked down and faced off. Temari's face showed apathy, while Ino's showed determination laced with worry. Let the 7th match begin, announced Hayate. Ino jumped back and took a stance, while Temari kept up her impassive facial expression, while leaning on her fan. What? Aren't you going to do anything? Asked Ino. Yon, why bother? You don't have a chance anyway. Give up now and save yourself the embarrassment, mocked Temari. Ino growled before charging at Temari. Temari stood still, continuing to stare at Ino with apathy. Don't say I didn't warn you, said Temari uncaringly. Ino threw a punch which Temari blocked with her fan. Ino then brought her leg up, but Temari pushed Ino back with her fan and then vanished. Where did she? Started Ino, before collapsing forward from being hit on the back of her head from Temari's fan. Well, I warned her, said Temari, still having an apathetic expression. Winner, Temari, said Hayate. Temari searched for Naruto's eyes and noticed he was looking at her with approval. Temari winked at him before walking up the stairs. Line break. The board once again went through names and stopped on Kiba Inuzuka vs Choji Akamichi. Yahoo! Let's do it, cheered Kiba, jumping down from the upper level. Choji walked down calmly. Let the 8th match begin, announced Hayate. Tunneling Fang, shouted Kiba, as he leapt at Choji and begun spinning. Partial expansion jutsu arm, said Choji, as his arm tripled in size. Choji used his arms to knock Kiba back. Kiba took a moment to think about how to deal with Choji expanding and then smiled as he got an idea. Catch Akamaru, said Kiba, as he threw a red pill to Akamaru. Akamaru growled, and his fur turned red. Man-beast clone, said Kiba, as Akamaru jumped on him, before he turned into a clone of Kiba. Fang over Fang, shouted Kiba, charging at Choji. Choji crossed his still enlarged arms in front of himself, blocking one of the attacks, but he was also attacked from behind and unable to block both attacks, so he was sent flying to the ground. Choji picked himself back up and punched one of the spinning forms, but the Kiba he hit kept drilling into his fist. Choji grunted in pain but kept pushing against the Kiba against his fist, until the other Kiba struck him in the back of the head, knocking him forward, but it wasn't strong enough to cause him to lower his fist. "Ah, my head," groaned Choji, who momentarily put his other hand over where he was struck. Choji then opened his palm and the Kiba who had been against his fist drilled into it, but Choji dealt with the pain and closed his hand around the Kiba. "This match is over. If this is Akamaru, Kiba, you need to forfeit, or I'm going to smash him into the wall, and if you're the real Kiba, you'll get knocked out," announced Choji. The Kiba which was free growled, before raising his hand and saying, "I, Kiba Inuzuka forfeit." Choji let go of Akamaru, who had passed out and reverted to a dog, placing him next to Kiba, before shrinking his arms. "Winner, Choji Akamichi," announced Hayate. I'm going to go broke when we go eat barbecue," thought Asuma, while Ino cheered. "Nice work, Choji. You did really well, plus that was a good way to win knowing Kiba wouldn't risk Akamaru getting hurt," complimented Shikamaru. "Thanks Shika, but it looks like it's your turn now," said Choji, while pointing at the board. "Shikamaru Nara vs Urasu. Sigh, this is so troublesome," complained Shikamaru, as he slowly walked down, while his opponent calmly waited. Urasu had a bottom-heavy build. He wore shorts that came halfway up his thighs, and wore a sleeveless black shirt, with his headband tied around his neck. His legs had a lot of muscle, and he had a firm stance, while his arms were rather wiry, as was his neck. Overall, his appearance was rather amusing. "Let the 9th match begin," announced Hayate. Urasu went through rapid hand signs in a blurring succession before saying the name of his attack. "Flying Rock Wave Jutsu," said Urasu. When he finished his hand signs, the ground began to shake and rocks and boulders started breaking out of the ground and floating in the air for about 2 seconds, before all of them went flying at once at Shikamaru. Shikamaru dodged the boulders and made a cross in front of his arms to protect himself from the small rocks. Shikamaru lowered his arms when he stopped feeling the rocks pelt him. He then pulled out 6 shuriken and held them in between his knuckles. He waited until Urasu used his jutsu again, but before the rocks started to fly at him, he threw his shuriken at Urasu. Urasu dodged backwards and began to make hand signs for his jutsu again, but had to dodge 6 kunai this time. He then looked around and couldn't see Shikamaru. "Come out, coward, or I'll make you come out," shouted Urasu. He then saw part of Shikamaru's jacket behind one of the rocks and using his legs jumped high into the air, revealing the strength he had in those limbs. "You're finished," he shouted as he came down and landed on the rocks, smashing them and crushing Shikamaru. Or so he thought. However, this was not the case, as there was only a jacket there, not Shikamaru. "Shadow Possession Jutsu complete," said Shikamaru from behind Urasu. Shikamaru then pulled out a kunai held against Urasu's back and said with a yawn, "Forfeit or die." Urasu blinked before sighing and stated he forfeited, and Hayate called the match. As Shikamaru walked back up, Choji cheered, while Ino was in the background drawing circles on the floor with her finger, mumbling how she was the only one to fail out of her team, even though she was the best looking. Line break. The board went through names again before landing on Tenten vs Chiri. Chiri was a slim girl with black shoulder-length hair. She also had a sword strapped to her back and wore a dark brown shirt with the sleeves cut off at the shoulders and black pants, with her headband tied around her right thigh. "Finally it's my turn. She has a sword though, so this might be fun," thought Tenten, as she walked down. "Let the 10th match begin," announced Hayate. Chiri pulled out her sword, which was deceptively longer than it appeared, reaching almost 2 meters in length. Tenten smiled and summoned 2 tantos, before settling into a stance. Chiri charged and extended her arm while swinging her arm downwards in a diagonal arc, looking to decapitate Tenten, but Tenten held the sword in between her tantos, one in front and the other behind the blade, with the blades themselves crossing over each other in a cross formation. Seeing that no one was able to move, they both lowered their swords and jumped back. Tenten took this moment to pull out a summoning scroll and begun flinging scythes, maces, and kunai at Chiri. Chiri used her sword to try and block some but had to keep dodging to the left and right to avoid getting hit. Tenten then stopped throwing her weapons and Chiri immediately charged. Chiri slashed diagonally, cutting Tenten's shoulder, before the blade was stopped by her tanto. Ha! Give up, you almost lost your arm just now and next time it might be your head. Threatened Chiri. Tenten jumped back and pulled out a scroll which Naruto recognized. So she's using it already. I wonder if she can handle it. Thought Naruto. When she summoned the blade, most people were surprised, but for different reasons. Haku for seeing her use it, Kakashi and Sakura, as they didn't know what Naruto did with the sword, Lee and Guy, as they had no idea how she got it, and everyone else because they were either unaware Zabuza was dead, or were questioning why the leaf had one of the 7 legendary swords of the mist. You know, this blade is called the decapitating carving knife. I wonder if that is just a name, or if it suggests something. Said Tenten conversationally, even as her face twisted into a grin. Tenten lifted the sword and charged, aiming for Chiri's torso. Chiri put her blade in front of her and blocked the direct attack. Tenten quickly freed one of her hands and threw 4 shuriken at Chiri, making her back up and jump to the right. Tenten then charged again and slammed the sword exactly where Chiri would have been, if she didn't think to dodge at the last minute. Chiri took this chance to charge at Tenten, but Tenten slashed at Chiri's legs, inflicting a deep wound into her ankle. Chiri fell to the floor and felt the decapitating carving knife on the back of her neck. Give up now, or we will find out if this sword lives up to its name. Said Tenten. Chiri sighed and announced that she was giving up. Winner, Tenten, said Hayate. When Tenten walked back up, Lee was crying and congratulating her about her flames of youth, and that he was dying at not yet having his shot to fight. Nice work Tenten, although I didn't expect you to be so good with that sword already. Said Naruto. Yes Tenten, your performance was magnificent. Said Lee, with flames in his eyes again. Well, I am a weapons specialist, so I made sure I could use any weapon and the blades of the 7 ninja swordsmen are the most famous, so of course I just had to know how to handle them. But you guys should focus on your matches, because there is a good chance that one of you is up next, you might even have to fight each other. Finished Tenten. Lee looked at Naruto and Naruto looked at Lee while each thought, that would be a youthful awesome match. The board however had different ideas and showed Lee vs Kankuro. Yes, there is no way I was going to be last. Cheered Lee, who quickly jumped down to the arena. Kankuro walked down and thought. What a loser, this will be over in a minute. Let the 11th match begin. Announced Hayate. Lee charged and kicked Kankuro up in the face, wasting no time and not allowing him to use what he had wrapped up. He then appeared behind him and loosened his bandages and wrapped them around Kankuro and begun to spin. Primary Lotus, shouted Lee, as he smashed Kankuro down onto the ground. When the dust cleared, Lee was bleeding from a gash in his chest, with purple fluid mixed with blood flowing out. What happened? Asked Lee, as he dropped to one knee. The bandages surrounding the thing Kankuro brought down with him opened to reveal Kankuro unharmed. Like I thought, over in less than a minute. Said Kankuro. How? Asked Lee. I'm a puppet master and you attacked my puppet before, but when you wrapped around it, it stabbed you with poison and now your body is full of it, you're going to pass out in a minute. And said Kankuro. Lee looked up at Guy, who gave him the thumbs up. Maybe not. You should not underestimate the handsome devil of the Leaf Village. The second gate, Gate of Healing, open. Shouted Lee. Lee's wound begun to close up and he stood up again, free of the effects of the poison. You may be right about this match being over in 1 minute, but I won't be the one to lose. Said Lee, before vanishing in a blur of speed. Lee kicked the real Kankuro up this time and appeared behind him. At least this way you will feel what your puppet felt. Ironic empathy, don't you think? Said Lee, as he loosened his bandages again, wrapping them around Kankuro's true form. Primary Lotus, shouted Lee, seconds before he drilled Kankuro into the ground, jumping away just before release. Once the dust cleared, Kankuro was seen knocked out cold. Hayate looked at him and knew this match was over. Winner, Rock Lee. Would the last 2 people yet to fight please come down? Announced Hayate, as Kankuro was taken away by medics. Naruto and Dosu walked down. I will beat you here and get my revenge for what you did to my shoulder. Said Dosu. Naruto looked into his eyes again, before diverting his gaze to the floor, remembering the pain he saw and the reminder of his own life, but this was then quickly followed by the memory of the condition his friends were in when he found them in the forest. Last match begin, announced Hayate. Dosu charged and pulled his sleeve back and went for a jab to Naruto's stomach. Naruto however disappeared in a flash, leaving Dosu confused. I can tell you have had a hard life, Dosu, filled with lots of pain, and I myself contributed to that, but you should forfeit. I don't want to kill you, but if we continue, you will lose and possibly die, as you're not fully recovered, said Naruto, appearing behind Dosu. Well, if that's the case, I'll kill you first, declared Dosu, as he pulled out a kunai and threw it behind himself to force Naruto away. Very well, said Naruto, drawing his modified katana. Naruto charged at Dosu and slashed at him, hitting his gauntlet, which caused Dosu to growl, as he pushed against it. Naruto used this moment to drop down and swept Dosu's legs, while giving his head a spinning mule kick, sending him away. Naruto then appeared behind him and gave him a brutal uppercut, sending him into the air. First tail. Tail of pain, said Naruto, as his one-tail cloak begun to form around him. Most of the Leaf Chunin and Junin present were worried, as was the Hokage, with some of them preparing to jump in, but Kakashi was calm, seeing as he knew that Naruto was able to use part of the fox's power without losing control. In the face of Kakashi's calm demeanor and the fact that as his sensei, he would be the one who knew of Naruto's abilities best, no one acted at that moment, but stayed on high alert. In an instant, Naruto had stabbed his blade through Dosu's knees and elbows, shattering the joints, as Naruto had immersed his blade in the Kyuubi's chakra. Naruto dropped back to the ground, landing on one knee with his sword held out to his right side, and Dosu fell to the ground, unable to move. As soon as Dosu hit the ground, he sheathed his sword and stood. Be glad you are still alive after what you did to my friends, said Naruto, as he waited for Hayate to call the match. As Dosu is unable to continue, the winner is Naruto Uzumaki, and with that these preliminaries are over, finished Hayate. Everyone stared at Naruto in varying degrees of shock, with most of them thinking something along the lines of when did Naruto become this good or ruthless, while Gaara stared at him calculatingly, going over what he had said in his head. Line break. All genin who made it through to the finals came down, with most distancing themselves from Naruto, who couldn't care less. Naruto, you were most youthful, in fact, for a moment, you were immersed in flames of youth, shouted Lee, unaware that it was power from Kyuubi, not youth. Naruto, that was rather impressive, and I'm glad that you never used that move on me in Wave, said Haku. Yeah, impressive, but don't you think it was a bit brutal? Asked Tenten. Naruto gazed directly at Tenten with a stern face and noticed the uncertainty in her eyes. Anyone who hurts those important to me will only receive one chance at forgiveness. I warned him and he didn't forfeit, therefore I'm completely justified. Also, we are ninja. Ninja have to be brutal, or else our villages could get overtaken by people who are capable of doing things even more brutal than what you just saw. However, don't worry, I won't ever use a move like that on my comrades, said Naruto, breaking his stern face with a smile as he said the last part, getting some relief to appear on Tenten's face. The Hokage told them that the exam finals would happen in a month to give them time to prepare and allow important dignitaries to arrive. Now, to decide who will face who in the finals, you will each draw a number, said the Hokage. After everyone drew and said their number, the matches were determined as follows. First match, Naruto vs Neji. Second match, Gaara vs Lee. Third match, Sasuke vs Shino. Fourth match, Haku vs Choji. Fifth match, Shikamaru vs Tamari. Sixth match, Tenten vs Sakura. You now know who you will be facing, so use this month to plan accordingly and also to rest and recover. Until then, let us adjourn until next month, finished the Hokage. Naruto left and begun to wander around the Leaf Village, until he came by the hot springs and saw a 50-something-year-old man looking in on the women's baths. Pervert! Naruto screamed at the man, causing him to fall and hit the side of the hot springs. The women inside heard the noise and ran away, covering themselves up as they did so and causing the man to cry. The man looked at Naruto and growled. You just destroyed my research, shouted the man. The man was tall with waist-length, spiky white hair, tied back into a ponytail, with two shoulder-length bangs that framed both sides of his face. He also had red lines that ran down from his eyes and wore a horned forehead protector, with the kanji for oil in the center. He also had a noticeable wart on the right side of his nose. He wore a short green shirt kimono and matching pants, under which he wore mesh armor that showed out of the sleeves and legs of his outfit. His outfit was completed with hand guards, a simple black belt, wooden sandals, a red cloak with two simple yellow circles, and a scroll on his back. He also had a tattoo in his left palm, which appeared to be swirl-like tribal marking. Yeah, research. First, I meet a creepy white guy who smells like snakes, and now I meet an old pervert who smells like toads," said Naruto as he walked away. Snakes? No, it couldn't be, thought the old man. Hey, wait up, kid, what did you mean by a white guy that smells like snakes? Asked the old man. Sigh, I don't have time for this, I need to train for the finals, but if you really want to know, it was some guy called Orochimaru. Later, pervert, said Naruto, who jumped away when he finished. So the fourth's legacy met Orochimaru and walked away from it, interesting, muttered the old man. Hey, it's the pervert, let's get him, shouted the women from the bath, now fully clothed. Oh crap, I better run, thought the old man, who was chased by about 50 angry women. Line break. I wonder if the pervert got away, said Naruto to himself, as he walked around the village, looking for a good place to train in seclusion. Hey, I'm not a pervert, said the old man, appearing in front of Naruto. Oh yeah, then what are you? Asked Naruto. I'm a super pervert, said the man, before summoning a toad and doing a dance on it while revising a clearly practiced speech. I am a man who makes ladies swoon with his good looks and men tremble in fear from his very name, the sage of Mount Myoboku, one of the legendary 3 Sannin. I am Jiraiya, finished the man. Thanks for listening. In the next chapter, please leave a review, I would love to hear your feedback, especially if it helps me improve the overall story.